What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video, and today we are finishing our updated 2023 NFL mock draft with the round 3 portion of this 3-rounder. So, a lot of picks to talk about. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you're new around here, want to see more draft content, be sure to subscribe. And if you're watching this after the Super Bowl, hopefully it was a good game. I'm recording this before then, so I am really excited to see it, obviously, but again, a lot of picks to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We start with the Bears at 64. I'm going to go Parker Washington here. I think a really nice slot wide receiver, number 7 receiver in my updated wide receiver rankings. Does a whole lot of things well. Maybe not a master of any one thing, but also has great ability to go up and win it in the air. So adding him into that slot role in an offense that already features Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. They have the speed. Washington, solid in that area, good enough quickness, but can be a savvy route runner there from the slot and can go win in the air as well. And I underestimated Jahan Dotson in that part of his game last year, and I don't want to make the same mistake twice. So would love to see Chicago add him there at 64. Next is Houston at 65. Let's go with Mazi Smith. This could be him or Gervon Dexter. Comes down to your preference here. But a defense that needs to get better there on the interior. And Mazi Smith, number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. So adding that type of a dude at 6'3", almost 340 pounds, the middle of your defense, that could be scary if you tap into his potential. And when it comes to defensive players hitting their potential, I got to put my faith into DeMeco Ryans. It's not necessarily him doing it. It's really the position group coach. But nonetheless, I am hopeful about the Houston Texans moving forward under DeMeco Ryans. Hopefully they become this player refinement factory of sorts, kind of like what we talked about with Baltimore and Philadelphia, where it just feels like they're always churning out these draft picks and turning them into their full potential. So hopefully Ryans can do the same thing, especially with Mazi Smith, because that could be something to watch. Next is the Cardinals at 66. I'm going to go Eli Ricks here. We've gone edge. We've gone interior offensive line. I think Eli Ricks is a really interesting player. When we've gotten to see him, both at LSU and Alabama, he's been really good. We just haven't gotten to see a whole lot of him, but a really good man press corner. We'll see what the scheme is in Arizona, so it might change a little bit, but, Vance Joseph was, big man press guy, so I'd love to see Ricks in that type of defense, but it might not be Vance Joseph. So we'll have to wait and see. This could be someone maybe like a Kyu Blu Kelly or a Clark Phillips or something like that instead. But I'm a big fan of Ricks. It may not be the most gaudy athlete, may not run, like 4.2 or anything like that, but an explosive back pedal allows him to not get beat over the top. Good ball skills as well. And again, when we've gotten to see him for LSU and Alabama, 2 of the best colleges when it comes to producing DBs, he's been really damn impressive. So we get to the Broncos for a pair of picks. I'm not necessarily in love with these picks. If you're a Broncos fan, let me know what you're looking for here at 67, because it's tough. And part of the position groups I would look at, off the tackle, we've kind of picked it clean. I don't really love the value for where we're at right now. So I'm going to go with Jordan Battle, and I'm envisioning him as your Kareem Jackson replacement, that box safety, and that allows Justin Simmons to play over the top. Also, if you continue to play a lot of, too high and cover 4 stuff, those two as a split safety tandem would be disgusting. And then I am going to address edge. I don't think it's a huge need, but maybe if you lose Jacob Martin, there could be an argument because Randy Gregory's battled injuries, Baron Browning, I think he got a star in the making, but we just really saw him as an edge rusher last year, so maybe that was a flash in the pan. And then Nick Benito, I did like a lot coming out of Oklahoma as a DPR in specific, and that felt like what Denver drafted him to be. So we're going to go ahead and add a 4th edge rusher in the mix, but if they bring back Martin, I really don't see this as a need. I don't really see it as a need as is, but Felix and DK Ozama in the 3rd round, as a guy who, beginning of the year, I would have been floored. If you told me 7 months ago that Ozama is somebody I have fallen in the 3rd round, I'd be like, yeah, maybe it's plausible, but at the time, at that specific time, that would have been unheard of. So, yeah, I think it's really good value there for Denver. And nothing against the player. It's just a loaded edge class, so FAU falls. Then we get to the Rams here at 69, which is nice. We're going to give them Luke Weipler. I think the exact center they could want, a zone blocking scheme, really good move. We're only 300 pounds, a little small, but because of that, really good in his feet. So I think in a zone blocking scheme, the type of center the Rams are looking for, they need to improve that into your offensive line, so kind of fits seamlessly. Then we get to the Raiders up on the clock at 70. Garrett Williams. I've had them take Garrett Williams in the 2nd round. And again, it's just, hey, deep corner class. Guys are going to fall. We're going to see a whole lot of corners here in the 3rd round, by the way. So would love to see this, Garrett Williams type of addition. And a guy who, if not getting hurt against Notre Dame, I'd been fascinated to know where his stock is right now. That's a great what if about this draft class, is like, where would Garrett Williams be if he didn't get hurt against Notre Dame? So I'm really optimistic about his game. A lot of people were anticipating a breakout this year for him at Syracuse, and because of the injury, we just didn't really see it come to fruition. Raiders, obviously a huge position need. Go ahead and take a flyer here in the 3rd round on Garrett Williams, who also has good size at 6 foot, 190. I think he'll test well additionally. Then we get to the Saints. I'm going to give him a tight end. Let me get get the Saints a tight end. Not since Jimmy Graham have they had somebody to dominate that position. Luke Musgrave looked good in the Senior Bowl, which is big because he missed a lot of time this past year at Oregon State. Fluid athlete, good enough route runner, soft hands is enough to check a lot of boxes. And in the third round, add that type of pass catcher to an offense with Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. We'll figure out the slot. Maybe it's Rashid Shaheed. Feels like he goes for 40 yards every time he touches the football, so give him the football more. All of a sudden, the Saints offense looks like it has a lot of explosive pieces. Next is a Tennessee Titans at 72. As promised back in the day one portion of this mock, I am going to address the interior offensive line, and this dude screams Tennessee Titan to me, Antonio Mafi. Some people haven't really heard the name, and I had him in last week's third round video. Some people were saying it's a reach. I'm like, yeah, well, interior offensive line comes down to flavor. Like, I don't think the Titans would draft Luke Weipler because he's 300 pounds and he's a zone blocking center. And likewise, I don't know if Antonio Mafi is somebody that the Rams would draft because he's a man-to-man. He's a power blocking guy. And this guy at UCLA, that's exactly what we put on the tape. Great run blocker with a ton of strength. What team sounds like they could use that on the interior offensive line? That's Tennessee. So we go tackle. We get a left guard to go with Paris Johnson Jr., who we took in the first. I mean, that left side of the offensive line is looking revitalized, it's looking youthful, and it's looking cheap, which is certainly big for this team trying to battle the cap. So then we move on to the Chicago Bears at 73. I'm going to go with Jarrett Patterson, so putting more focus on the interior offensive line. I had Luke Weipler last week, but here Patterson, I think, can do a lot of the same stuff. Also comes with guard flexibility, so whether it's center, whether it's guard, I think Patterson works his way into the interior offensive line group, and it's just a place they can get better, like I said. And we've added DeJuan Jones to right tackle, so we're trying to make the life of Khalil Herbert in the backfield that much easier, but we're also thinking about Justin Fields pretty heavily. And I felt proud of myself. If you're a Bears fan, you might hate this, but I finally had a draft where I think a majority of my picks have been on the offensive side of the ball. Let me just double check. But I feel like in a lot of these mocks, it's really easy for me to go defensive heavy. And this time I was able to go Carter to start and then offense there the rest of the way. So I'm proud of myself. A literal pat on the back. But Bears fans, let me know why I'm wrong. Then we go to the Jets at 74. I'm going to go with DeMarvin Overshown here. This is one of my guys. I feel like I'm a lot higher on Overshown than a lot of people. But if there is a defense and a defensive-minded coach that I think can take 6'4", 6'5", 240, 245, and that type of athleticism, like Overshown is exactly what you want a linebacker to look and, play speed-wise, play at. So can Robert Saleh, one of the best defensive minds in football, can he unlock that? I don't know how much of an impact he had on, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw during his time there, but man, San Francisco's done a great job, developing these linebackers. Maybe Saleh's a part of that, maybe he's not, but if he is, please work your magic on DeMarvin Overshown because he cleaned up that missed tackle percentage from this last year at Texas. First few years as a starter, that was a way too high of a number. This year only had like 5 missed tackles and like 4 came in one game, so he really shored up his game as a tackler. And again, perfect size, great athleticism. This guy is going to be worth taking the shot on, in my opinion, and he's a very moldable ball of clay. So let's give him a team that doesn't have a whole lot of holes. Linebacker is one of those holes, and I'd love to see what Saleh and that defensive staff could do with Overshown. The Atlanta Falcons, this might be my favorite pick in this video. Kayshon Boutte to the Atlanta Falcons. You're going to add that type of speed to an offense that features Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Two guys, Drake London, he's no slouch. Like, I am not going to win a foot race with Drake London, but he's not the fastest guy in the NFL. And hey, Kyle Pitts runs 4.4, but he's a tight end. He's 6'4", 6'5", so 4.4 speed is really, really nice. Boutte's touching 4.2. That type of guy over the top of a great running offense that has other weapons that you have to respect. You have to keep Drake London in mind. You have to account for Kyle Pitts. And with a team that runs the ball this well, play action is deadly. And with Kayshon Boutte's speed, he's going to get behind DBs. Like, this dude's going to generate big plays. Now it comes down to Desmond Ridder hitting those throws. If he does, man, this offense is going to be #fun to watch. So I would love to see this selection here mid-round 3. Next is the Patriots, and let's give them Jalen Jones. I've been going corner sometimes in the first round, especially Devon Witherspoon. Feels like a man press, Bill Belichick type. But they did hit on Jack Jones in the 4th round, so maybe they do something similar here with Jalen Jones. 6'2", right around 200 pounds, played pretty well at A&M, only allowed 10 catches this year, which bodes well, but A&M's defense is also just kind of rough to me, so maybe the ball just went elsewhere. No way to tell unless you watch the tape, but I'm impressed by Jones. And here in the 3rd round, hey, also just another Jones in the mix. They don't have enough, right? Jonathan Jones, if they bring him back, Jack Jones, Marcus Jones. You know what? I should have had this pick from that alone. Last name Jones corner, it's a Bill Belichick guy. So Jalen Jones, so I mean, need I say more? But no, legitimately here, man press upside, that's what Bill Belichick's roots are. So pairing him up with Jack Jones can make for a really fun outside corner pairing. Thought about linebacker here, but I just don't love who necessarily is on the board here. Then we get to the Miami Dolphins, dude. I am cooking up an absolute heater of a mock draft for Dolphins fans, so congratulations to those Miami fans. But Darnell Washington is the exact tight end Mike McDaniels is looking for. That is the closest thing he'll find to George Kittle without trading for George Kittle. And now let's give the fastest offense in the NFL, the fastest player, I think, out of this draft. I am anticipating Devon Achane to run the fastest 40 at Indy. And you put him in the backfield, that zone blocking Shanahan scheme that's going to give him competitive edges. They're going to find holes. That dude hitting the hole who runs like a 10-1 100-meter dash for the indoor and outdoor team at Texas A&M. Oh my God. And again, with an offense that already has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm losing my mind over this, but yeah, I would love to see that. There are not many like player to team fits I want to see more than Devon Achane to the Miami Dolphins. Next to the Green Bay Packers at pick 78. Let's go with Clark Phillips here. Now, hear me out, Packers fans. And if you're a Green Bay fan, don't be mean, but let me know how much you hate this pick if you hate it. I was looking at Rasul Douglas's contract, and it's pretty cuttable now. You could release him and save about $3.5 million, which is not a lot, so I get it. But then next year, if you did clear Douglas off the books, you're saving about $8 million, which that becomes a number that you really start to heavily consider. Clark Phillips, I'm kind of concerned he won't be able to play on the outside at 5'10", 183. I'm concerned about the arm length. If he can, dude, in a Joe Barry zone-heavy defense, if he communicates, this guy's a ball hawk, he could fit into that. Which I like Jair Alexander a ton. Who watches football and doesn't? And I think Eric Stokes is a good player. I think I was not very excited about that pick, but he has turned into a better player than I anticipated. Add Clark Phillips in the mix. Maybe he fits in that outside rotation, or maybe he just becomes the Rasul Douglas replacement there in the nickel, which here in the third round, I think finding a competent nickel corner is good value. That is a important position to have in your defense, especially when, if you're the Packers, you've been winning a lot of games, right? I don't know what it'll look like post Aaron Rodgers if that's the world we're heading into, but if you're playing from ahead, 3 corners is a necessity. So like that from that perspective, maybe you could cut Douglas, save some money. But if you're a Packers fan, be kind to me. Don't hurt me. But let me know what you would do here at 78. Next up, Indianapolis Colts. Man, the pronunciation that every draft analyst has been practicing before they go to bed. Adetomiwa Adebawore. I feel much more confident about having to say his last name, Adebawore, but edge that really showed out at the Senior Bowl and really did it from a lot of different alignments. So for Indianapolis, this team that's been looking for edge, he kind of fits their, twitchy, high-end athlete, parameters that Chris Ballard, those boxes he likes to check at edge. And Adebawore, I think you can move around and play him at different alignments too, which becomes really, really interesting. But mostly it's like the Colts, Kwity Paye, a pretty good run defender right now, but still hasn't taken that step forward as an edge rusher. So therefore, edge continues to be this year over year need for Indianapolis. Maybe Adebawore can bring an end to that type of stretch. Then we get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to give them a defensive lineman, potential nose tackle of the future. I think that's the role that best fits Moro Ojomo, and he's a high-level run defender at Texas. And whether it's been Tre'Vius Adams, Tyson Alualu, haven't seen a lot from those guys that really says, hey, that position's taken care of for the next 5 years. So let's go get a cheap potential replacement there with Ojomo, and I think it's good value right at 80. It could also be Keandre Coburn, his teammate at Texas, which was right next to him, right? But and it could be Gervon Dexter, but I kind of like Ojomo as a run defender more than those other two. So then we get to the Lions at 81. Let's go with Sidney Brown, man. Pairing up a couple of former Fighting Illini safeties, Sidney Brown to be the strong safety, the box guy with Kirby Joseph up the top as the free. Sign me up. I want to watch that. That's what I want to see. And, now we've gone linebacker, we've gone edge, we've gone corner, and we've gone safety. We are addressing this Lions defense in every way possible, and then throw Jahmyr Gibbs in the mix as well. So you see where my focus is where my focus for Detroit is at. And if you watched the Lions play last year, you understand. So would love to see Sidney Brown pair up with Kirby Joseph. I had this fit last week, and, I kind of love it. And also, Sidney Brown looked really good at the Senior Bowl, so that should give you an extra boat of confidence if you are a Lions fan. Then we get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to actually repeat the same pick I had in last week's third rounder. Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson. I think this is just a seamless plug-and-play guy to play that nickel. If you move on from Sean Murphy-Bunting, if I'm the Bucs, I'm bringing back Jamel Dean, letting Murphy-Bunting walk. So Hodges-Tomlinson becomes a seamless replacement there in the nickel. Could also be Antoine Winfield Jr. who does that. Maybe you're drafting a safety, but for the sake of today's video, let's just go ahead and make that Hodges Tomlinson. Then we get to the Seattle Seahawks back on the clock at 83. So we've gone edge, we've gone corner, we've gone interior offensive line, we've gone wide receiver. I thought about IOL again because I do think they could use 2 upgrades there. But instead, going back to the defensive line, let's say Gervon Dexter. And at this point, it's your 5th pick in the top 83. This is like a free roll of the dice. Gervon Dexter might not work out. He's always been a guy I get excited about, but then every time I get my excitement levels too high, he kind of disappoints. So I'm a little lower on him than I think a lot of people are, but dude, you look at his size, you look at his athleticism, his ability to get off the line. There's a lot to be excited about with Gervon Dexter. It just never really translated at Florida. That said, if you're Seattle, again, 5th pick in the top 83, it's like, hey, if we think we can get it out of him, let's take the shot. Because if you add that type of a monster in the middle of the defense, I mean, it could change the entire complexion of that defense. On top of what we did with Tyree Wilson, I mean, I could see a world where if they re-sign Uchenna Nwosu, you could be looking at like a pass rush situation, 4-man front of Nwosu and Mafe on the edge, and then these monster human beings and Gervon Dexter and Tyree Wilson on the inside. I mean, how fun would that be to watch? But if you're a Seahawks fan, let me know what you think about Gervon Dexter or maybe another interior defensive lineman that could work. Carl Brooks was someone I really considered about here for Seattle as well. Then we move on to Miami, and as promised, I am cooking up an absolute just 5-star review here for, or 5-star meal here for the Dolphins. You can leave me a 5-star review, I guess. But Matt Bergeron, a guy who I'm not crazy high about coming out of Syracuse, but has his fans. It has been a really solid player for Syracuse. I just don't know if he has any one thing that's like, yeah, that guy, stud. But even a serviceable right tackle is leaps and bounds beyond what Miami's been getting out of Austin Jackson and Brandon Shell and George Little or Greg Little. George, he might as well be George Little. Greg Little, not very good. So we took Darnell Washington earlier as like a little bit of a right tackle contingency. But I also think you could get a solid player there at that position in the 3rd round like Bergeron, and he could become a much improved option there at right tackle. Which you get that figured out, and Miami's offensive line is looking pretty much complete, dare I say it. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to go with Dan Henley. I hope I'm saying that right. Dan. I think it's Dan Henley. But looked really good at the Senior Bowl. Plays with good athleticism, good instincts as well. And I think it's just a position that we don't really talk about with the Chargers, but they can certainly get better there. I like Drew Tranquil, but they could use another guy there in the middle of that defense. And we added Keanu Benton to stop the run in the 2nd round. Let's go ahead and add a linebacker to further prove that point. Let's double down on our thesis here. We need to become a better run defense squad. I think Henley helps you get to that goal on top of drafting Benton in the 2nd. Then we get to the Ravens at 86, and another big Senior Bowl riser, Riley Moss. See, it's tough with these Iowa corners because, Moss, 6'2", 200 pounds, like ideal size in a lot of ways, and I think he'll test well. He checks a lot of boxes. And, I mean, this is a Baltimore team that runs a lot of zones, so this could be a natural fit as is. But, with guys coming out of Iowa, it's like, yeah, they just run so much zone. Can this guy hold a zone in man-to-man coverage? Then he goes down to the Mobile, and specifically in the one-on-ones, which by its own nature is man-to-man. It's one-on-one. He looked good. And, man, if he can bring that type of flexibility between man and zone defense with his athletic ability and his great size, this dude in the 3rd round is awesome. And, again, putting him in a place like Baltimore that runs a fair amount of zone, but also just an absolute player development factory. This could be a place where Riley Moss sees his best football come to fruition. So I would love it for him, and I'd love it for the Ravens as well as they, face a future with, Kyle Fuller hitting free agency, with Marcus Peters hitting free agency. This is a big position of need for them. Then we get to the Vikings, and as I noted in my 1st round video, I probably, I'm recording this before people comment to let me know I'm an idiot, but probably a lot of people saying, hey, we need a corner. Yeah, I hear you. I understand. Cam Dantzler, I think took a step forward last year. Lewis Cine missed a lot of time at safety. Andrew Booth Jr. missed a lot of time at corner. I still want to see them add somebody. So Julius Brent, another guy who looked really good at the Senior Bowl, good size, 6 foot, 190. I think he's totally in play here, and I'd like to see them add a corner. Maybe just wait till the 3rd round and go ahead and add some speed in that middle of the defense. So another one of those teams where I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, but look at the Vikings offense. There's a lot to like there. Even if you don't like Kirk, like Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, good running backs. The offensive line has been able to, for the most part, hold itself together, specifically with Darisaw in the lineup. And Thielen's still playing okay football, and a nice compliment to Jefferson, of course. But and Kirk, career year. He'll throw it short of the sticks with your season on the line, but career year. But yeah, we got to fix that defense. We got to clean that up. So we go some additional speed in the middle of the defense with Trent Simpson at linebacker, add a corner here in Julius Brents, and things start to follow suit from there. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. As promised, we're putting a lot of focus on Trevor Lawrence, so kind of the inverse way we were talking about with the Vikings and some other squads, the Lions. Emil Ekiyor, we're going to get an upgrade there at left guard, where I certainly think this team can get better. He's not the most impressive like Alabama guard I've seen in my lifetime, but he's solid, he's serviceable, and I feel comfortable at him being able to play the position day one. So Cam Robinson got that extension last offseason. We're going to put Ekiyor next to him. We drafted a tight end on day 2, or in round 2, and we got an awesome fit with Brian Branch. We've addressed both sides of the ball, and specifically with a tight end and now a guard, we're just complementing that situation around Trevor Lawrence and where I think there could be holes or where they could find another interesting piece in the mix, focusing really there with Musgrave, maybe pairing him up with Ingram or replacing Ingram. Anyways, you saw yesterday's video, so I don't need to elaborate. Pick 89, the New York Giants, where I'm going to have. This is one of my favorite draft fits. I'd love to see Drew Sanders be the guy for the Giants in the first round, but if not, Ivan Pace from Cincinnati was a dog as a pass rusher at the Senior Bowl, and he was a dog at Cincinnati as a pass rusher. So if he is Wink Martindale's designated blitzer from the middle, check the box. Like, whatever you got to do to make it happen, make it happen. I would love this fit. I think Wink would be the perfect DC for Pace to play under, and I think this is, if not Drew Sanders, one of the best linebackers available for the Giants. So instead of taking a guy round 1, you wait, you address some other needs, and you get a guy at round 3. You can do a lot of the same stuff. So I would love to see this fit if I'm a Giants fan. Let me know, though, if you are a New York fan. Let me know why I'm wrong. And then we get to the Cowboys at 90. I'm going to go Tank Bigsby here. I would, again, this is where my bias is coming in. I want to see the move on from Zeke Elliott. It may only save you $5 million against the cap this year, but it'll save you a lot more for years to come. And I think Tank Bigsby can basically do what Zeke used to be able to do, maybe even a little bit more. I think there's more explosiveness in Tank's game than Zeke really ever had. Maybe when he was at Ohio State. Maybe, but not as much as Tank. Speed to power conversion. Also, Tank can put his foot in the ground and has that one-cut ability that few in this class have. Not that few in this class have, but as much or more than a lot of others in this class have, because it's a good running back class as well. But Tank, I mean, pair him up with Tony Pollard, assuming they franchise tag him, that's a gross tandem, but also a much cheaper tandem. So I'd love to see the Cowboys make it happen. Then we move on to the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go with an offensive lineman. There's a few offensive linemen down towards the end of this video that not a whole lot of people know about, and don't be sketched out by the number next to their name. I just don't think they've caught steam yet. But Chandler Zavala, I believe is how you say his name. The pronunciation I studied has now escaped my mind, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But 6'5", 335, kind of ideal guard size. And a guy who played well at NC State, looking at his PFF grades, solid, dependable. Haven't gotten all the NC State film watched yet, and he is a newer interior offensive lineman that I'm starting to hear some buzz and some love for. But yeah, the position need is evident for the Bills. So we address some of those other spots, but they do need to fix up that offensive line pretty bad. So Zavala could be that upgrade at either guard spot they're looking for. Because unfortunately, Ryan Bates, they tendered him, but he didn't look great last year, and they certainly need to get better over Roger Saffold. Also, that was only a one-year deal. So I'm envisioning here Zavala is that left guard of the future. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's go with Tucker Kraft. You know, I've been going Darnell Washington pretty heavily in the first round, but Tucker Kraft would be a fun addition. Good enough blocker from South Dakota State. My only concern is, you know, he didn't go play at one of these Senior Bowls like the Shrine or the Senior Bowl. And the level of competition is always kind of, you know, a tricky one, especially when he dominates the way he does. It's like, yeah, well, would you have done the same thing against Alabama? Probably not, right? Like, Alabama's an extreme, but like, would you have done the same thing against, you know, ACC, you know, middle of the road ACC competition? No guarantee. So I would have loved to see him get one of those senior circuits and be able to kind of answer that question for us, but he didn't. So I'm going to have him go round 3 here and addressing a need for Cincinnati. Good athlete, can make a lot happen after the catch, good hands as well. So a lot of ways kind of fills what Cincinnati needs him to do. And he'll be the fourth fiddle at best behind, you know, Boyd, Chase, and Higgins. So love to see that just kind of round out that offense. And one final time, let's go back to the Detroit Lions here at pick 93. I alluded to interior offensive line a little earlier, and I'm going to go with Curtis McClendon. Not a name a whole lot of people are talking about. I think he was on Todd McShay's top 5 interior offensive linemen. ESPN did a roundtable with him, Kuiper, Jordan Reed, and Matt Miller, who are their draft guys, who I respect a lot of, all 3 of those guys. And McClendon was one of those names that came up for, I believe, McShay. Smaller school guy, so I need to get my hands on the Chattanooga film. But if McShay has him that high, I'm just kind of throwing out a name there. And of course, guard is a position that I think that the Lions could be looking to address, but also maybe Ricky Stromberg is more of a center, so is Joe Tippmann. So that's where I kind of ran out of options here at the guard spot. Maybe Jake Andrews, another small school guy. So I don't really love it there. Juice Scruggs, just because of the name alone, maybe is in consideration. But decided to go with Curtis this time around, address that guard spot. Makes for an interesting fit into that defense. Then we get to the Kansas City Chiefs at pick 94. I'm going to go with Kyu Blu Kelly, a corner that I think they would like. They've had some later round guys be able to perform serviceably. But then also I see T. Higgins and Jamar Chase go beat those guys up in the air. So it's like, yeah, they can still get better there. So Kyu Blu Kelly, ideal size, looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl. After day one, he was getting beat up a little bit by Michael Wilson. But after day one, he looked pretty good. So like he checks a lot of the size boxes Spags wants in a corner. And then at this point, adding perimeter corner depth and trying to find an upgrade there for a team that plays from ahead. Same stuff we were talking about yesterday with Edge. You play from ahead, so continue to focus on those areas where, even if it's just adding rotational pieces, you play from ahead enough to where that is vital. So adding edge yesterday, adding corner here, I certainly don't think will hurt that defense. Then we get the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going back and forth in this one. I kind of want to give Brandon Joseph, give him an over-the-top safety, but I'm gonna give Marcus Epps a break here. I'm gonna go Tyke Smith. Tyke Smith is essentially Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. West Virginia transfer over to Georgia, played the nickel, played some box safety. He literally plays that exact same hybrid role that you could have with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. This is literally my C.J. Gardner-Johnson contingency plan. We'll see how that contract plays out. He's going to fetch a bag, man. I don't know if Philly's going to be able to bring him back. And if they do, it's probably at the expense of James Bradbury. So a decision to be made there in Philadelphia. We'll have to see how the cap space plays out, how free agency works. But I'm just going with Tyke Smith here as a potential C.J. Gardner-Johnson replacement. Then we get back to the Arizona Cardinals at 96. I'm going to go with, let's go with Henry To'oTo'o. So I mentioned it in one of the earlier videos in this mock where they can get better at linebacker as is. Zaven Collins and, Nick Vigil, I think, was going to be a free agent this year. If not, then I think you can just get better there. So To'oTo'o can just be an upgrade at the position. But in a perfect world, I think I'd really be fascinated by Zaven Collins moving outside and playing some edge. But if not, no matter what, linebacker is a need, whether Collins is playing there or not. So let's go ahead and address that here. To'oTo'o is a guy that I haven't had in any of my videos. I'm not as crazy high on him as others, but a ton of playing time at Alabama, and I think that will speak and give him some kudos at the NFL level going through this process. 97. This is a tough one. I'll go with Byron Young from Alabama, just in case they lose Daron Payne. So this is another one of those things where it's like, let me see free agency. If they bring back Payne, then I'm not addressing defensive line because they have 4 first-rounders across it. But if they miss out on Payne, Byron Young makes some sense. They also did draft Damari Mathis, another former Alabama defensive lineman. But Mathis was much more of the single-gap, pass-rushing type that I thought they already kind of had with Allen. So Young, I'm thinking more as a run-stopping replacement for Daron Payne, which is much more of what Payne's brought to the table over the last 2 years. So may not be something that Washington's looking at heavy. If you're a Commanders fan, let me know what you would do here at 97. But thinking about Daron Payne if he leaves, maybe trying to fill that role that way. Then we get to the Cleveland Browns. Let's go Marvin Mims. Same pick I had last week, but dude, put him in that slot role. I even said this in my wide receiver rankings. This is the place I want to see Marvin Mims go. Be that new slot wide receiver for Kevin Stefanski. I think it's a great OC for Mims to be playing under. Mims' best year at Oklahoma was under a great offensive mind in Lincoln Riley. Then, his play kind of tapered off, the production and, the PFF grades just kind of went down with it. So I think getting back with a great offensive-minded coach will certainly help him. But also, this is just trying to find any sort of help we can for Amari Cooper, who had to do a whole lot on his shoulders last year. So you have Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones play on the outside. Cooper, a guy who does it all. Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of running that vertical stuff. The poor man's Gabe Davis is what I like to call him. And then Marvin Mims does a lot of stuff. I think can win at all 3 levels. Specifically, get the ball out to him quick, let him work the underneath stuff, and let his speed take care of the rest. Or use his speed as someone who can get open deep down the field. So trying to help out Deshaun Watson, find some help for Amari Cooper, and address his big position and he went interior defensive line, now wide receiver for the Browns. I think that's the first 2 picks. I think that's where the Browns' emphasis should be. So then we get into 3 picks from the 49ers and then 1 squeezed in there by the Giants at 100. So at 99, this is where I'm going to have Brandon Joseph come off the board. Him or Chris Smith can make sense here. I think Chris Smith actually had a little bit of a rough week in Mobile, but let's go with Brandon Joseph. They brought on Tashaun Gibson midway through the year. I just don't know if they want him to continue to play that. So if not, Brandon Joseph allows you to get younger and more athletic, I'd argue, at the true free safety spot. So yeah, love to see that. especially in a cover 3 defense. Let Joseph just be a ball hawk. Now we have the Giants kind of interrupting the 49ers work here. I'm going to actually go back-to-back offensive tackles that I think make for better guards. Let's go with Nick Broeker. This is, to me, left guard upgrade right away. Maybe could become a swing tackle, but to me, I'd say you move him inside. I think he profiles a little bit better as an interior offensive lineman. Let him be that left guard of the future. Fix that offensive line. I mean, like you did so much over the last couple of years, drafting Andrew Thomas, drafting Evan Neal. Let's go ahead and finish the job, see it through. Let's move Broeker inside to play left guard. And then for same thing for San Francisco, I'm just going to go with Caleb Chandler. Again, don't worry about the names on there because that's also accounting for tackle versus guard. Caleb Chandler, I think would make for a really interesting fit at guard. A little bit smaller, 6'4", 297 pounds. So I'd like to see him add some weight. But I do think because of how light he is, moving him to guard in a zone blocking scheme becomes kind of interesting because he'll be fleet on his foot. I mean, we'll see once we get to the combine. Maybe that's not, you know, a true stereotype I'm applying here, but I'd like to see him add some weight. But also, if this guy can move, and I'll dive into the tape as well, if he can move well in space, this becomes a really interesting potential guard upgrade for the 49ers, where I do think they can get better. And also, last week I went with 3 defensive picks. In hindsight, I was like, one of those should have been offense. So Caleb Chandler is my, you know, offensive addition in the mix here, as I'm now going to flip to the other side of the ball and go with Karl Brooks. Big winner out of the, one of the big winners out of the Senior Bowl. Small school guy, but I think, and he was also playing edge a lot at the at Bowling Green. So I think now moving him to a defense that's going to allow him to play, if this will stop playing, that will allow him to play on the defensive interior. San Francisco, great track record of being able to develop those guys. So I'm going to go ahead and showcase round 3 one final time, but as we round off today's video, be sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who went too high? Who fell out? What name should be here in the top, you know, first 3 rounds? Who did I leave off? I'd love to hear your thoughts there. But of course, most importantly, who's your favorite team? What did you think of the 3-round mock in general? You know, what did you like? What did you hate? As long as you're respectful, I will respond to every comment down below in the comment section. So let me hear your takeaways in the comment section. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. If you're new around here, want to see more draft content, more football coverage in general, hit that big red subscribe button. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.